All right, here we go. Today is day 2 of part 2 of solving multi-step equations. So in the last video, we talked about solving multi-step equations where we had to either distribute or combine like terms before we solved the equation, or in order to solve the equation, I should say. But now, as you can see by our target here, our goal is that we can solve multi-step equations involving distributing and combining like terms. So now we're going to have to be able to do both of those things in order to be able to solve. So to practice this first, we're going to simplify some expressions where we have to distribute and combine like terms. And what's going to be really important for you to remember here is that when we need to distribute and combine like terms, we always distribute first. Right? Because we need to get rid of those parentheses before we can start combining like terms. So no matter what's going on, I always distribute first. So in my first example, here are my parentheses. So I know I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Negative 3 times x gives me a negative 3x. Negative 3 times a negative 4, we're being really careful with our signs, is a positive 12. And then I go ahead and I bring down that loner term. So I have a minus 7x. So I'm left with an expression where I just need to combine my like terms. So if I look, I notice I have a negative 3x and a negative 7x. So again, we're going to be very careful with our signs. And in our calculator, what we're going to enter is negative 3 minus 7. And that's going to give me a negative 10x, and then I bring down my loner term, my plus 12. So I've fully simplified that expression. Number 2 is the same thing. Here are my parentheses. Again, I'm just going to distribute to start. So 7 times x gives me a 7x. 7 times a negative 5. Right, so back to my calculator, a 7 times a negative 5 is a negative 35. So I put minus 35 and then bring down my loner, which is minus 11. Again, now I just identify my like terms. I don't have any other terms with an x, so actually this guy is going to be my loner this time. But I do see I have two constants. I have a minus 35 and a minus 11. So again, I'm going to go to my calculator to help me out. And I'm going to get a negative 35 minus 11. And that's going to give me a minus 46. So I'm going to bring down my 7x. And then I'm going to put my minus 46. And there's my simplified expression. Now, I think those are a little easier when the distributing comes first, but really it's not too much different. So here, it happens that this term is outside here. Remember, we are only distributing the number that's right in front of the parentheses. So this is kind of a case, what I'm distributing is the 2. So for a minute, I'm going to pretend there isn't a 6x here. And I'm just going to worry about this 2 that needs to be distributed. So 2 times x gives me a 2x. 2 times a negative 8 is a minus 16. And I'm going to bring down this 6x. And I know this was a positive 2, so that's a plus. So now again, all we're left with is combining our like terms. I see I have a 6x and a positive 2x. So when I combine those, I'm going to get 8x minus 16. Okay, one last problem. Again, my parentheses here are kind of towards the end. In this case, I'm distributing a negative 2 to both terms. So a negative 2 times x is going to give me a negative 2x. Now a negative 2 times a negative 1, that negative times negative gives me a positive 2. And I'm going to bring down my negative 9x. I look and I see my like terms. I have a negative 9x and a negative 2x. And when I combine those, a negative 9 minus 2 is going to be a negative 11x, and I bring down the plus 2. So really what we're going to be doing is combining these skills with the skills we've picked up on solving equations. So let's put this all together and look at number 5. So the first thing I do is I always draw my line to keep myself nice and organized. And again, this side just has the 28. I don't even bother with this side quite yet. I'm going to be working just on the left side of my equation. So the first thing I see is that it looks like I'm distributing a positive 3 to these terms in the parentheses. So I have a 3 times x is a 3x. 3 times 4 is a positive 12. And then I'm going to bring down my 5x. So I know all of that is equal to 28. Now, I haven't quite simplified it yet. I did distribute, but I haven't combined my like terms, so that's what I'm going to do now. I have a 5x and a plus 3x. So if I add those together, I have 8x plus 12 is equal to 28. And again, now I'm just back to my two-step equation. So I first look to the side with the variable, and I know I need to move that constant before I do anything else. So I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. My 8x comes down. And over here I have 28 minus 12, which is going to give me a 16. Last thing to do is just divide by 8 on both sides. So that's going to give me x equals 2. Now, of course, I'm going to check my work. I want to make sure I don't have any mistakes before I say I'm done. So I'm going to copy my original. And again, anywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in this 2. So every time I see an x, I put in a 2. So 5, instead of x, I'm plugging in the 2. And then I have plus 3. And again, instead of x, I plug in a 2. And then I bring down my plus 4. And I'm going to put all of this in my calculator to make sure that I've got this correct. So 5 times 2 plus 3 times the sum of 2 and 4. So I make sure what I have on my paper is exactly what's in my calculator. And then I check it, and I do get 28, so I know I'm 100% correct. Okay, for this video, we're just going to do one more example, and then again, you'll be doing lots of practice and be able to get help while you're going through that. So let's just do number 6. Again, same exact idea. I'm distributing and combining like terms. So the first thing I look to see is if there's anything I need to distribute. And I see parentheses here, so I know in fact that I do have to distribute. And I know that I'm distributing this negative 2. That's what I'm distributing to everything in the parentheses. So negative 2 times y gives me a negative 2y. A negative 2 times a positive 7 gives me a negative 14. And I'm going to bring down my 8y. Now again, I'm still focusing on the left side because what I'm looking for is any like terms. So it's pretty easy to pick up. I have an 8y and I have a minus 2y. And then negative 14 is my loner. So 8 minus 2 is going to give me 6 of those y's. Minus 14 is equal to 16. And now again, basic two-step equation. So here I go. Variable is over here on the left. I need to move this constant, and I'm going to do that by adding 14. Then bring down my 6y. And on the right side, when I do that, I'm going to get 30. One step left, I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides, and I get y is equal to 5. So I'm pretty sure I'm done, but of course I'm going to check this out. So 8y minus 2 times y plus 7 is equal to 16. Now I'm checking for 5, so everywhere I see that y, I need to put in a 5. Let's see, sorry for my switching back and forth here. Y we said is 5. And then I'm copying down plus 7. So the only thing I've done is changed y's to 5s. And then I go to my friend the calculator here. Let's see if I put it over here. Can you see that? Yes. So again, typing in exactly what I have on my paper. Hit enter and I get 16, which is equal to 16, so we know we solved it correctly. So we'll stop there for this video and let you get some practice. Of course, we'll be around to help you as you're working through these. But this is kind of as far as we'll go for now with these multi-step equations before we move into the next section of the book, or the chapter.